Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Gatney, and I'm the coordinator of the CVFS webinar series. Our host today is Dirga Gamiri, research professor at the Population Studies Center at the University of Michigan. Dirga will be presenting new research on courtship, spouse choice, and marital instability using CVFS data. There will be a Q&A session after the presentation. We ask that you remain muted until then. During the Q&A, you may raise your hand to ask a question or use the chat. Also, please use the chat during the presentation if you have a clarifying question. We'd also like you to know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available to view from the CVFS website. The slides will be available there too.
Yes, this is the area I have been interested for a long time, almost 30 years. But the interesting part is it is still keeping me interested in the area. So I will, tell you why I am still interested in this topic. My outline of presentation is very generic, so I will not go, like I will give a brief background, why I am interested and what made me motivated for this research. And I will go through some research questions, the method, result, and conclusion as you will see in every presentation. Background, yes, the rapid social, political, and economic changes in South Asia have rapid change on courtship processes and other aspects of marital dynamics, likely leading to unprecedented variation in these areas. Because the autonomous courtship processes were evolved and now, and universally in European and North American context, it is almost impossible to study the impact or effects of autonomous courtship processes in other marital behavior or dynamics. So South Asia provides a very unique opportunity to investigate or to understand the consequences of changes in courtship processes on marital behavior, including marital instability. What makes me keep motivated in this topic is, marriage has been, known for providing, a lot of benefit. It reduces the incidence of poverty and mitigates the various social issues, enhancing well-being of both adults and children. Of course, it is not universal, and these effects vary by socioeconomic background, including gender. Although at least one of the partner must perceive some benefit, in general, divorce is found to be associated with an increase in poverty, decline in physical and mental health, diminished job satisfaction, and overall decrease in well-being. In recent literature suggests that participation in spouse choice or the way people get married uh, has important consequences on their health and marital relationship. Recently, at least I know two studies, a handful of studies have explored the role of marital arrangement in marital instability. However, these studies have largely overlooked the crucial potential influence of initial phase of union formation, which is a courtship. This gap in research leaves a significant gap in our understanding of how recent changes in autonomous courtship processes shape the quality of marriage and their stability in non-Western setting where the autonomous courtship process is relatively new. Research question, how do marital behavior such as change in age at first marriage, courtship process, and participation in spouse choice change over time across marital cohort in Nepal? there are a lot of studies or a lot of papers. You can see that that claims that marital behavior are changing rapidly in non-Western societies, but there is little long-term evidence. Second, once we look at how those marital behavior are changing, we will see how are the courtship and participation in spouse choice associated with marital instability. I will go a little more detail on how those association varies by gender and concordance between a husband and wife in reporting the courtship process and participation in spouse choice. Usually, the common understanding is, people ask, like, did you have love marriage or arranged marriage? And people think that when you say a love marriage, both the partner have equal uh, participation in the love, or both partner have equal say in that marriage. Whereas when we study how people participate in the participation in spouse choice, there is a huge variation between male and female. So we think, uh, so we want to know if there is a concordance, if both of them agree that they have fully participated in their spouse choice or partially participated in spouse choice, how that is related with their marital instability. Theoretical framework, I mean, usually there are two ways to think about it, about the courtship process. Courtship process is generally thought about once you started meeting somebody, going to date, and you start making plans about making a family. So all those process, people think it include, first it has to be, those two partners should be compatible to each other, and they start building a bonding between them, and that should keep the marriage very stable. So it should affect the marital instability negatively. Whereas in other literature, what we found is, uh, those people, especially in non-Western setting, when people, those people who, initiate the courtship processes, they may be slightly different than those people who follow their historical, marriage behavior, like, go with their parents, finding their spouses. So what that tell us is these people must be more independent than the people who do not participate in the courtship process. So that independence might last and will affect the marital instability in a different way. That is, that independence might sometimes result into disagreement between the partners, because if I think I'm more knowledgeable than my wife, then I might start uh, criticizing her or disagreeing with her. So that might negatively impact their stability, which means positively impact their instability. Method, this study uses the Chitwan Valley Family Study. I pulled the data all since the study started in 1995. It's a panel in Nepal with a general population sample across 151 neighborhoods. Most of you know about CVFS, so I am not going to talk this methods and sample in the very detail. Altogether, the pooled sample is 6,344 married individual from CVFS. So it includes everybody who, in the sample were married while they were in the sample. Method, the outcome measures, we operationalize marital instability by combining the event of marital separation due to marital discord. This is particularly because historically in Nepal, legal divorce is not that common. If people, if the two partners did not like each other sometime, women eloped with another male without formal divorce, or the male, married with have a second wife and brings a wife in the same household. So the first wife could not live with them, so she lives separately and leave the household in some ways. That means so that's why we try to be comprehensive and include those marital discourse in this analysis. So there is also recently the legal divorce is also becoming more common, and because yeah, because of those things, we combine or we operationalize marital instability, that combining both the marital separation as well as the legal divorce. Measure of marital instability comes from a prospective household registry data, where one adult member of the household reports about the living arrangement and marital status of each individual member of the household. Unlike the measures of marital instability, our measures of exploratory factors come from the individual interviews conducted with both wife and husband separately. So they don't know what a wife responded in this question, or husband doesn't know, and wife also doesn't know. So we conducted this interviews separately. Uh, this approach of conducting separate interviews allow us to capture each individual perspective without much contamination with the other partner, and ensure that the data reflect the personal experience and insights with the influence without the influence of the other partner. Like the explanatory factors, the measure of control measures such as sex, age at first marriage, year of first marriage, premarital non-family experiences also come from individual interview conducted with wife and husband separately. The explanatory factor here, or our uh, independent variable, is the measure of knowing one's spouse before marriage. It seems very odd in Western settings, but in Nepal or in non-Western setting, knowing your spouse before the day of your marriage was not that common. Although it is getting more common these days, it was not common. So this is somebody says a crude indicator, but it is a good indicator of whether these two young people initiated their courtship themselves, or they were told to marry somebody by their parents or relatives. So the question, the measures for knowing one's spouse before marriage is from the response to a question: did you know your husband or wife/wife, depending on whether you are male or female, before the talk of your marriage? We added that before the talk of the marriage, because they must have initiated that. So the response, if the response is yes, was coded as 1, and no is coded as 0. The participation of spouse choice. The measure of participation of spouse choice is from the response to a question. People marry in different way, but in your case, who selected your first spouse? Your parents, relatives, yourself, or both? If the respondent say parent, we coded that as 1. If yourself, or she said myself, then that is coded as 5. But if the respondent answered both, they were asked a follow-up questions. Who had more influence in choosing your spouse? You or your parents and relatives? If the respondent answered with parent and relatives, we coded that as 2. If the respondent respond with myself, we coded that as 4. And if the respondent answer with both equally, we coded that as 3. This gives us an ordinal scale ranging from 1 to 5. 1 did not participate in the spouse choice, which is generally called arranged marriage. And 5, solely choose your spouse, which is also referred as love marriage, which I do not completely. Okay, so that's our 2 predictor variable in this. So the controls include, as I said, sex. Female is coded as 1. Ethnicity, there are 5 categories, caste ethnic categories: Brahmin, Kshatri, Newar, Dalit, Hill Janajati, and Tarai Janajati. Age at first marriage in years. As marriage duration calculated from the age at marriage to the date of interview. Marriage cohort, uh, these are coded from the timing of marriage, which year they were married. And then there were 5, 6 non-family experiences, premarital non-family experiences, that is, ever attended school before first marriage, ever work outside for pay before first marriage, ever lived with non-family members, ever saw a movie in a movie hall before marriage, ever been a member of youth club before first marriage, and ever traveled to Kathmandu, which is a capital city of Nepal, before first marriage. Okay, now let's move to the results. This is proportion of married people experiencing marital instability by marriage cohort. As you can see, there were less than 1% before 1970s, and 2% now, which, if you consider in terms of percent increase, it is almost double, but it is still very low. Divorce or marital instability is still very low in this setting compared to the Western setting.
Dirga, sorry, a quick question for you.
Yep, sure.
On the margin on the left-hand side, it says 0.01, and it says again 0.01, then it says 0.02, and it says again 0.02, then it's 0.03.
I see. That was a mistake. It should be 0.3 and 0.4, right? No,
Should it be, or should it be 0.15?
no, it should be 1. 1.0. Oh, what happened? The current slide. Why I have different? Okay. No, it is a 1, 2, 3, 4%. It is a percent. Yeah.
Okay.
Durga, can you adjust the display settings, please? Swap.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Now, age at first marriage. Although because of the slide length of the slide. This number doesn't show that big, but before 1971, it was about 17 year average age at first marriage, both for male and female, and then that goes to up to 23 year who were married between 2011 to 2020. So there is a substantial increase in age at marriage. Now, you can see the courtship process, how the courtship process changed. Like number one is knowing your spouse before marriage. It is high even in the beginning because there are certain ethnic group, they have a cross cousin marriage, so they know each other. That was one reason this baseline, like before married before 1970, also had a 30%. But as you go along, every cohort in married cohort there is an increase, except in between 71 to 80. Otherwise, it is in an increasing order, which is even more in participation in spouse choice. You can see a clear increase in participation in spouse choice. The difference between knowing a spouse before marriage and the participation in spouse choice, you can see a lower, only 20% participated in a spouse choice, whereas 30% knew their spouse before marriage. That is because of that cross cousin, marriage. So, and then finally, if you only look at the percent of people saying, I choose my spouse myself, it is increasing, and it has been gradually in the last 3 decades compared to earlier 3 decades. Yeah, there is another new hypothesis that is now the people in South Asia would like to have a hybrid marital arrangement that is partly supported by family and partly chosen by themselves. That might be one reason that those rates are not that high. This might be a little difficult to read, but because we will put these slides in the website, so you can read there. But here I just wanted to give a description of the sample. I have a full sample, female sample, and male sample. As you see, knowing a spouse before marriage, it is 36% for full sample, 33% for female, and 38% for male. There is that difference. Participation in spouse choice, if you look at self choice, full sample mean is 33%. For female, it is 24%, and for male, it is 41%. So there is this difference. So people would usually think like, oh, you have a love marriage or arranged marriage, and both partner will have the same response, but that is not the case, especially in the Western, non-Western setting. Next, I will show you the full logistic regression model of the hazard model of hazard of first divorce or marital instability, if you like to call that way, for full sample. In this sample, knowing your spouse before marriage reduces your chances of or your probability of not probability of divorce by about 33%, or marital instability by 33%. But none of the other, like participation in spouse choice was not significant in the full sample. When you disaggregate this into male sample and female sample, these are the female sample. So I mean, usually, and the common wisdom is, if you participated in spouse choice, if you have a husband that you like to have, that should be good. But the story here is different. If you choose your spouse yourself or participated in spouse choice, you are more likely to end your marriage earlier for female. We can talk about what that might be, but that's the story of this.
I have a rival hypothesis that I look forward to discussing with you.
Okay. But for male, participation doesn't matter. I mean, it is negative, but it's not significant. But knowing your spouse or knowing your wife before marriage does decreases the odds of getting divorced or marital instability. So these are, I mean, usually people think that, things work in the same way for both male and female, but it is not the story here. Now, what I'm doing in this, showing in this is, let's say both of them agree on reporting their knowing their spouse. Both of them knew their spouse before marriage. How does that associated with their odds of getting divorced? When I say getting divorced, that include both marital discord or separation as well as legal divorce. Please take that way. So couples who know their spouse, both of them, if they both of them knew, they are 45% less likely to end their marriage early. Couple who agree that they participated in a spouse choice, they are also less likely to get divorced. And there is slight reduction in the odd ratio once you go from one to the ordinal measures to the dichotomous measures, like that is couple self-selection. Both of them say, yes, I choose my spouse. That is 48% of them are less likely to experience marital discourse during their marriage, or marital instability during their marriage. I think this is a very interesting story. So if there is an agreement between those potential spouses or a spouse, then that is going to help. But if that is not the case, then both male and female has a different effects of those courtship process. Although there is extensive literature on factors influencing divorce in a Western setting, there is a limited evidence on how rapid changes in courtship process affect marital instability in South Asia. This study documents the changes in courtship, participation, spouse choice, and marital instability, and it examines the association between courtship and marital instability in this context. First, there has been a very steady increase in youth involvement in courtship and marital instability. although both autonomous courtship and marital instability remain relatively low, still relatively low. Second, at the aggregate level, there is a strong negative and statistically significant association between knowing a spouse before marriage and marital instability. When disaggregated by gender, you know the more nuanced findings emerge. First, the female who reported higher participation in spouse choice during courtship experienced higher level of marital instability. Conversely, for male, all three aspects of courtship are negatively associated with marital instability. Unlike female, these associations are statistically significant only for one's knows their spouse, for male. Moreover, when the wife knew their spouse before marriage, the association between measures of courtship and marital instability remained negative but was now no longer statistically significant. Finally, the results from the couple concordance model suggest strong negative and statistically significant association between all three measures of courtship processes and marital instability. This suggests that agreement between husband and wife in reporting their courtship processes is associated with marital stability. I think that is a way forward. I'm using only one crude measure of courtship, and we need to need more detailed measures of frequent courtship processes, dating practice, and duration, and other details. This is the end, and this is all. So I will stop here and open the floor for questions. Okay, any questions?
Hello. I have a question.
Yep.
Well, actually, I have two. So my first question was, when you talked about couple concordance between like knowing your spouse before marriage, was there a lot of couples where one said that they knew their spouse before marriage and the other said that they didn't? I was just curious about that measure.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, in a descriptive, there you can see, and that varies by gender. Yeah, the 36% on an average, 36% say they knew their spouse before marriage, and that varies by gender. Male are more likely to say they knew their spouse compared to female.
I want to support Octavia in saying, Dirk, I think it would be useful to hear at the couple level what percentage agree that they didn't know, what percentage agree that they did know, and what percentage disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Should be 3 percentages there that add to 100. And I think the question of in what percentage of couples does one person say one thing, but the other say the other thing,
Mm-hmm.
is of great interest across all three of those measures of concordance, independent of whether they match aggregate males and females.
Yeah, I definitely think there is more to work, and yeah, this is the simplest form, if I may. Uh, that is, I'm only matching those who are agreeing between the two.
Yeah, I just think
Yeah,
to understand what it means and why it's there, it would
Yep.
be helpful to know like how many couples. And Octavia, you didn't go this far, but I might say it'd be interesting to predict that with the same things you're controlling for, so that we knew what of those controls predict disagreement between the two. Octavia, you said you had two questions, so I'm going to shut up for a minute.
No, thank you for explaining that. And my second question was, I saw the control variables that you used. I'm unfamiliar with, the demographics of the region, honestly, but are there like kind of unobserved demographic differences like income or education that affects who has arranged marriages or who has love marriages?
Yes, but I mean, I have ever attended a school as an education major because on the in the earlier cohort, marriage cohort, there was a huge I mean less than 50% people would ever attend school.
I see.
So I use that, but that measures yeah, may not be appropriate for the young cohort. But yeah, there is that education measure in that, and that is associated with both the courtship, age marriage, and all marital behavior. Right, that's true.
Thank you.
Octavia, I have kind of a related question, I think. And you're describing sort of what's unobserved in
Right.
this model as it stands right now. And the great thing is the CVFS has thousands of measures, so we could try looking. Derek, conceptually, what bothers me as unobserved is which women believe, feel, or truly are free to decide for themselves. I believe the freedom for women to decide for themselves creates an association between the freedom to get into a damn marriage and the freedom to get out of a damn marriage. And I base this on an interesting, my dear friend and former mentor, Linda Waite, wrote a book called The Case for Marriage,
Mm-hmm.
about how wonderful marriage is. And then she introduced me to another person who I respect a lot named Paula England. And Paula England did a presentation that turned into a book chapter on how marriage could be better for everybody, but still way the hell better for men than for women. And women could still be exploited in these relationships. And I personally believe that's still happening everywhere, including in Chitwan Valley. And so if that's true, it means that that's part of why those women who, and Octavia, I'm not, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but if a woman has enough education, a sure enough job that she is able to leave this house on her own, maybe with her kids, and say, I'm done with this, not gonna do it anymore, that of course that would increase the odds of marital separation. Dirga, this is a little bit of a smaller matter. I probably would have called it marital separation, not instability. In most settings, and I'll use the US as an example because it's the other one I've studied, is the actual legal divorce is almost never at the same time as the physical separation from the house. And I think you're using co-residence as the event measure.
Yep. Yep.
And so we might say, separation due to marital discord or separation due to, conflict between spouses. But if that separation is the timing measure, I'd probably call it separation rather than instability.
The whole outcome, you mean?
Yeah, the outcome that you're studying. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And in that sense, I think this potential gender inequality could be part of the explanation of why you see the specific associations you do see, given all the things that are not measured. Back to, Octavia, what I think might be the broader point here is, of course, there's a lot of things unmeasured. What all might be important here that's unmeasured?
Right.
Right.
On your freedom part, freedom of choice part, I mean, what my understanding is in the earlier stage, if you have, guts to see a boy without your parents' parents' permission or no, knowledge. I mean that's kind of freedom or independence she has. Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, our collaborator Kate Scott makes this point a little bit that, but if she gets pregnant and has a child, now what?
Yeah, yeah, that's another, yeah.
And how much freedom does a person have in that situation?
In that situation, brother, that's true. Yeah. Other questions?
We don't have any rounds of data that measure. I mean, I wonder,
Yeah.
women's work stuff, right, Emily? I mean, might that provide measures of employment that would give us a better purchase on, I don't know, the means to end a marriage?
Yeah, I mean, in that case, yeah, I agree, but yeah, I am using only premarital because that could be associated with my courtship process, and but if you put a time-bearing measures of work and employment, yes, I agree. Yeah, that could
Do
be
we
that.
have those kind of time bearing measured?
Yeah, we collected. So the challenge is that the samples may not line up perfectly because the women's work measures, we did an employment calendar that asked retrospectively, I believe it was about the last 8 years, Durga, is that correct? But it was among women with young children.
Yep, yep.
So we wouldn't capture women who were married but had not yet had children. Or so we would capture some of the premarital work history for women with young children who within those 8 years maybe worked, got married, and had their first kid. But this, there's so that there should be substantial overlap between the samples, but it's not going to be perfect, and there would be some
Yep.
bias.
This is a pooled sample married from 70s to 20s. So yeah, no, number one. But the thought that came to my mind is if we look at their life history calendar, that might give us some time bearing measures there.
Yeah, we'd at least have like full-time
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
person, part-time employment by
yep.
person. Yeah, and it's also interesting, like there might be some merit to investigate this hypothesis and look at more covariates to hold it within a cohort. I mean, with the cross cohorts, you establish that there's change going on. And by the way, when you establish that there's change going on and then you get to the most recent cohort, you don't see as much change. I'm like, well, but that's because a bunch of those people haven't married yet. So we can't measure this stuff yet. So most recent cohorts are always problematic in that kind of thing.
So in my analysis, I dropped this cohort from married from 2011 to 2020 because
Those kind of issues.
those kind of issues.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking when I saw the descriptives. Yeah.
yeah,
But I wonder if we took, one or two cohorts more recent, if we could get some of these more detailed histories to line so that you could get well, more input into the model and what might produce the associations you observe.
that's true. Yeah. If there are no more questions, we.
Well, let me ask one more.
Yeah, sure.
I'm giving everybody else another minute to think about it. So you got concordance, and then you've got these main effects. Can we put both in the same model? You put concordance,
Yeah.
kinds of concordance in the same model. Can you put like a model of women's marital separation and it controls for both her answers and the concordance with the?
Mm.
You can't put husband, wife, and concordance, but it might
Yeah,
be
right.
individual.
Yeah, I had in my separate female male model. I control the spouse report of those things. But yes, they're right. Let me
Might
see.
be interesting to see that to interpret the differences.
Yeah, yeah. And one more thing I have not done, but I'm thinking to do is, here I showed you only those who say they choose their spouse solely, self-choice, right? What if we look at only those who said their marriage was completely arranged by parents?
Yeah.
If the concordance holds there, then that is then I would say that we have more. Yeah.
Yeah, I might do it independent of that, the
Yeah.
control
Yeah.
the most choice.
Yeah.
Maria, I think Maria asked a good question in the chat. And Maria,
Yeah.
one reason it's a good question is because I believe the answer actually changes across these cohorts. But Dirga, the question is, what does legal divorce look like in Nepal?
It is increasing.
But sorry, how does it work? What is
No, I mean, yeah, the law, Nepalese law on divorce is more favorable for women. If the woman wants to have a divorce, she can go alone and file it, and the judge will, claim, make a final decision.
how long has it been that way?
I think it is from 94 or something.
So post the end of the monarchy.
Yeah, yeah, post
And how is it different for men?
men, the woman will have to agree, or at least she will she will have to give a consent. Uh, but again, there is some debate on that too, and it looks like they might change that rule law Uh, because there was a claim
A
from
lot of
men.
follow
Men,
on this
yeah,
topic, so you should know
yeah, yeah.
a lot of things to. I mean, I want to know what child support next. I don't know.
Yeah. Because there was a now men are complaining that they were suffering from this law, and yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Maria, any follow-up thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I have done some research in Chitwan, and that's how I got connected to this study. And so I've been following some of the webinars recently, just trying to learn more. And I don't remember meeting anyone who is divorced or even knowing about that really as a possible concept in the region, but it was not what I was looking at by any means. So I was just kind of curious, and it's not something I know a lot about in Nepal, even though I've spent time in the country.
Well, this is why I pushed him a little bit on what I would have called separation. I remember, geez, Dirga, so I lived there in the 70s and I would have answered the same way. But then by the time I came back in the 80s, a friend of mine was married to two wives.
Mhm.
He lived with one of them in one town, and he paid for the house and the kids
And the other
one
town.
where his first wife remained.
Yeah.
I would have called that some version of divorce.
That is marital discord. Yeah, yeah. Right, right. That is included here. Yes, she is living separately because of that. In terms of divorce, why I was able to say what I said earlier was, in one of our interaction with respondent, we presented these some of the descriptives, and women there stood up and say, yes, this, now we have a right to divorce anytime we want. Uh, so that was the yeah.
Yeah, Jennifer, actually, Jennifer Glick makes a good point here too, Dirga. And Jennifer, that is a question on my mind. Like, how one of the ways that in the past work that Elise Jennings did on divorce, she sorted co-residence was the person was now resident with a different person of the opposite sex and called them a spouse in a different place, not with, so the only people who would have two spouses were in the same residence with both spouses. But Dirga, Jennifer's question is, there are other reasons besides discord spouses are not co-resident.
Yep.
How do you know which ones are divorce?
No, in the household registry, we ask in this specific question, if they are separate, what was the reason? Is it because of marital discord or because of work or study?
I thought that.
Yeah.
So we don't ask the word divorce. We ask marital discord or versus other reasons.
Is it for work reason, work or study or other reason versus it is because of, marital discord? Yeah. We ask that in there.
So you have to use that measure to code up this.
Yep. Yeah. It is not like simple. Yeah.
No, it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but interesting, Maria. I'm not sure that somebody who says they're married to two people and lives in two separate houses should be called due to discord if they don't say it's due to discord. I don't know.
Okay. Any more questions?
I don't see any more questions. Thank you very much, Dirga, for hosting our webinar today, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Let me know if you have any more other questions. You can email me, or if anyone interested in collecting more data on courtship.
Great.